Hi YouTube! Okay, so for my second video, I decided to talk about my two favorites and two least favorite books of 2023. And you may be wondering, why isn't there more? Why isn't it like your top five and least five? I read a lot of meh books, especially in an old position I had where I could listen to stuff all day long. I listened to a lot of audiobooks, and I don't really like fiction audiobooks. So I listened to a lot of memoirs and nonfiction. And I don't know, it's not really that fun to talk about those when I could talk about stories. So let's talk about stories. Okay. All right. So my favorite book that I read this year is a tie between TJ Klune's Under the Whispering Door and Casey McQuiston's Red, White, and Royal Blue. I have read all three of their published novels. I have not read, I think there's a short story out there I have not read, but yeah, I read One Last Stop last year, and I liked it. It was pretty good. I read I Kissed Shara Wheeler this year. I liked it. It was pretty good. But Red, White, and Royal Blue was adorable. It was like everything I want from a romance novel. And I'm not exactly a romance connoisseur, so maybe I don't know exactly what people want from romance novels, but it's everything I wanted from one, and I loved it so much. And it also, I read it near the beginning of the year, and it kind of changed my reading life. And that sounds really dramatic, but let me explain. I had this really bad habit of not finishing books. Like, if you watched my first video, you would know that The Elegance of the Hedgehog I have tried to read and failed many times. I never got rid of it because I always felt like I would like it someday, but I could never sit and finish it for whatever reason. Now, Red, White, and Royal Blue, it does have a bit of a slow start. I will be the first to admit this. I almost didn't finish it. I was pretty bored at the beginning, and I almost didn't finish it. But I decided to power through because I liked One Last Stop, and I feel like the world needs more queer rom-coms. So I decided to push through, and it ended up being one of my favorite books ever. So it kind of changed my life in that after that, for the rest of the year, I didn't abandon books. And that's how I actually have a most hated list this year, is because the books I hated, I still finished. Now, I'm a very noobish YouTuber. I don't know how to put a lot of effort into my videos, as you can see. So I probably should have written out notes on my books, and I think I will in future books because it's occurring to me now that this could use some preparation. For example, why do I know the dog's name in Red, White, and Royal Blue? I know the main character's name is Alex. I'm forgetting the love interest's name. But anyway, I love that book, and I love the movie. I watched the movie as well, and it was adorable, although the mom's fake Texas accent was a little much. That's my only critique of the movie. And my only critique of the book is a slow start, but in the end, it was worth it. Now, my other second favorite book, TJ Klune's Under the Whispering Door. 2 years ago, I read The House of the Cerulean Sea, and I loved that book. Loved it to pieces. Then I learned some problematic things about it, and it kind of fell from being my top book because then I realized it was kind of a, what's the word I'm looking for? Blind? No. Short-sighted? I don't know. It it was like a commentary on residential schools, but not really done in a very informed way, if that makes sense. Like, there are people who have much more eloquent criticisms of this book out there. Go read them, listen to them. You'll understand what I'm talking about. I am struggling to put it into words right now. as a writer. Anyway, but Under the Whispering Door, to my knowledge, was not problematic in any way. I don't think so. It was a delightful read. It was sweet, just like the other one, but it was a little more focused on the romance and a little less on found family. Although there is a sense of found family with Under the Whispering Door, but it is more romantic, I feel, than House in the Cerulean Sea. It is kind of fantasy, kind of paranormal. I don't really know how to describe the genre, but it was really good. I really enjoyed that book. So there's my top 2. Those were my favorite books that I read this year. I am so sorry if this comes out disjointed. Apparently, I cut myself off by accident. Anyway, my least favorite books this year. I'm going to save my least favorite for last, because it is the least, it is the last. My second least favorite book I read this year, and I could probably go on another passionate rant about it, even though I just ranted about it without the camera recording me. Legends and fucking Lattes. Cozy fantasy. Cozy as in I'm going to fall asleep. It was the most boring book I have ever read, and I've read some boring books in my time. I was an English major, okay? Fancy literature at college. That can get kind of boring. No. Legends and Lattes, by far, the most boring book I have ever read. There were no stakes. It's supposed to be low stakes because it's a fantasy where people don't die. I feel like there's a medium between stakes where people die and no stakes at all. The worst thing that happened in the book is she had to pay taxes. And I think the store got burned down. But she rebuilt it and everything was fine, and it was really boring, okay? The romance was boring and forced. Ordinarily, you tell me, oh, this thing is a sapphic romance. I am all on it. I am fucking gay. I love a good romance. Give me a sapphic romance and I'm happy. Unless it's this, where the end felt forced, there was no chemistry between them. It was just not a good book. I did not enjoy it. I really didn't, okay? And I know that everyone loves this book. People rave about Legends and Lattes. But I'm sorry, one chapter they learn how to make cinnamon rolls. Another chapter they learn about biscotti. Then there's iced lattes. This is the book. It is so fucking boring. In elementary school, I was obsessed with Laura Ingalls Wilder. Those books have no plot. None. There is no story to those books. It is just a description of shit that happened when she was a kid and how she lived her life. Legends and Lattes, way boring than any Little House book out there. I'm going to say it. Controversial take. I'll lose my 0 subscribers for this. Legends and Lattes is boring and I hated it. I, for some reason, gave it 2 stars. I think it was because it still was kind of cute. And the idea is interesting of, an orc opening a coffee shop. I like the idea of it. So I had to give it more than 1 star. But I did not enjoy it. It was a very, very boring book. Okay, my least favorite book. And this book I hate so much that I have decided I am never going to read any of the author's books ever. I see her books on the shelf at the bookstore. I scowl now. I hated this book so much. And that book is Verity. I wish I could hold it here, but I read all 4 of these books as ebooks. Verity. Verity. You get the picture. That's my Kindle. Anyway, even if Red, White, and Royal Blue didn't change my reading philosophy forever, I probably still would have finished it because unlike Legends and Lattes, stuff was happening. The plot was moving forward. Things I didn't like about it were the sex scenes, they seemed really out of place in a story that is almost a thriller, but it was like a romance thriller, and it's like this really toxic relationship, and it was just gross. I did not enjoy the sex scenes. The ones between the husband and wife were not as disturbing as the ones between the main character and the love interest, because it's really toxic, dude. Colleen, Ms. Hoover, really toxic. Anyway, what I hated most about Verity was the end. This whole time, I'm pushing through these awkward sex scenes, pushing through these toxic relationships, because I'm curious, is this woman conscious? Right? And we learn all these horrible things about the woman. And spoiler alert, stop the video now if you don't want to be spoiled. She didn't do any of it. I'm yelling so much I'm making myself cough. The mother, all these horrible things she wrote about doing, she did just to make herself seem more interesting, or like, I don't even remember what it was. It was some sort of writing tactic to write these horrible things. So then her husband reads them and thinks that she was trying to murder their children. And then so he tries to murder her. And then I hated this book. It was far from boring. Okay, I will give it that. It was not like Legends and Lattes. It was not boring. Also, unlike Legends and Lattes, it was not endearing in any way. It was just horrible. I think I'm really bad at doing Goodreads reviews. That's another one of my bookish resolutions for next year, is to actually review books I read instead of just hitting the stars. Because then I look back years later. It's not just because I'm not telling other readers or because I'm not telling the author what I liked or disliked. It's because when I look back later, I'm like, what did I like about this book? Didn't I like about this book? What do these stars mean? So I did review 2 books this year, and they were Legends and Lattes, which I made a point of talking about how dull it is, and then Verity. And my Verity review was simple. It was not helpful in any way. I don't think it'll even help me down the road, except it'll tell me, oh, I don't want to read Colleen Hoover, do I? And that was just, thanks, I hate it. I hated it. I hated those books. But I loved my queer little romances. I'm always on the hunt for queer little romances, especially sapphic ones that aren't about boring coffee shops where we discover what cinnamon rolls are. I would love to read more sapphic romances when I'm not reading my other books that I have to get through, because I promised myself I would. I want to read sapphic romances. I think the next video I'm going to post is probably going to be about A Court of Thorns and Roses. The series, that is, which is all contained on here. What I like about it, what I don't like about it. Tamlin. Anyway, if you stuck around this long, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.